Alright, so I got this back down on the workbench here, and because it looks like maybe this thing's actually going to run, but I've got to resolve this issue of the pull starter screws. Oops. Anyways, the issue I'm having, and now I need a magnetic pickup to get that out. Issue I'm having is that I can't get these screws to tighten. I forgot what Stihl calls these screws, but they have a special name for these screws, and their big claim to fame about them is that they actually can cut their own threads into the aluminum casting during assembly, and then apparently they can be removed and reinstalled as many times as necessary, provided you follow the very specific torque specifications that the screws require. So the problem with this is that many people do not use the proper torque specification. And what happens is, as soon as you over tighten these, they tear out the threads in this soft aluminum alloy. So I can put this screw in and I can actually tighten it down, and it starts to tighten really well, but not until it gets pretty far down in. And there's a pretty thick layer of two plastics. Essentially, you got this plastic shroud goes on first, so you've got the thickness of this plastic right here, which isn't too bad. But then you also got this thickness in here of this metal insert that's in there, okay? And when you combine the two, that adds up to being pretty thick. I can push this screw in. I can actually literally push it in. You can hear it pop in. What has happened is all the threads up here near the front are toast. The threads way down in there are still good enough for this thing to tighten, but by the time I get it to the point where it's in far enough for that to have tightened, this space right here isn't enough. In other words, no amount of tightening will work. So I could just see if I can get these screws, this type of screw from Stihl, only longer if they make them. Maybe they use them in a different application. I don't know. But that would be waiting for a special order. I read online, and what a lot of guys end up doing is they end up just drilling these out and tapping them. If I do that, though, there's no going back, because this wall of metal on this is pretty thin. This one over here is pretty darn short, too. There's not much to it. This one actually is in better shape, not by much though. I do know that if I'm going to retap this to something, I'm going to want to retap it to something that's a coarse thread. I don't want to use fine thread in this soft metal. That'll be just asking for more trouble. And if I do this, I think what I'm going to do is, if I successfully can get these retapped, then I'll probably put the new screws in and not tighten them very hard, but just put some Loctite on the threads. So in order for this to be even mildly successful, I need to drill out these holes. Oh, my voice cracked there. I need to drill out these holes to a diameter that completely removes the remnants of what's left in there for threads. So, well, how do I know what that's going to be? Well, I want to try and keep this as small as possible because, again, this metal area is pretty thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my digital calipers and I'm going to get a measurement. I'm going to get a measurement of the OD, the major diameter of this funky screw. So I think they are calling this an M5 screw, which makes sense. It's just a hair over 5 millimeters. 199 thou. All right. Right now, any of you guys watching this video who work on these for a living probably noticed something that completely eluded me, which is the fact that these screws I was just showing that I've been trying to use to hold the starter on are the P5 whatever plastiform screws, the special ones. So I happen to look in the manual at the tightening torques, and I noticed that they're specifying this size screw, plastiform screw, for this fan shroud. And I was like, wait a minute, when I put this fan shroud on, I was missing a few screws. And I just thought, well, they were missing when I got it. I couldn't remember. And then I looked and I noticed that for the starter, it says to use M5 screws. So I was like, ah, okay. And longer ones. Remember I said that these seem too short? So I just was looking here, and sure enough, way back when, last time I was working on this or whenever, I took this thing apart, and lo and behold, I found another container of screws. And I found more of these, which are probably my missing ones for the fan shroud here, and these. And, you know, it looks to me like, not that one, but I bet you, see, that's a short one too. These three right here, though, I bet you these are M5, and these are probably the ones for the damn. See how they get larger heads to them too? So I think these are the ones for the starter. Which makes me wonder what these are for. So the fan shroud assembly is supposed to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 screws. Actually, looks like I got a couple extras. But this orange shroud here, this thing, I think there's a couple of those size that go in that too. So, all right, now we're cooking. Okay, so I put in the 12 screws that go into the fan shroud housing, and then I've got one of these left. So this is the P5 18, which it is. It's 18 millimeters long. So that leaves me with 5 screws over here. I'm assuming this extra, I got actually 2. These 2 extra P5 screws are probably for right here and here. Or maybe for up in the top here. How many did I take out of that? Actually, there's one here that's missing completely. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm missing more of these P5 screws. This screw is a completely different thread, and it's a lone wolf all by itself, but it fits perfectly in this brass insert to hold the cover on the air filter. So I think that's for the air filter housing. So it leaves me with these screws, which all appear like they might be M5. The problem is this one is 20 millimeters long, and these 3 that match are 24 millimeters long. Well, I'm kind of puzzled here because neither one of the M5 taps that I have fit this. So then I took one of these screws, which I thought was the right screw. It doesn't want to screw in correctly. And when I tried to measure the thread pitch on it with my thread pitch gauges, none of my thread pitch gauges match this. So I think I got a couple things going on here. I think this is a mongrel thread, and I think that these threads are just butchered pretty badly. So I am going to take the daring step of, I'm going to try and tap these out to an M6 without pre-drilling. Why? Because I saw somebody on, I think, Arbor site or one of those website forums did exactly that and said he had no problem doing it. So we'll see. So I'm going to do, this is the worst one of all of them. So this is an M6-1, and that already is going in crooked, so I don't like that. That looks better. That's definitely better. Okay. One down, 2 to go. I could tell that this hole was a lot more damaged than this one. This one, a lot tighter going in. This one I didn't even use any tapping fluid on it, but this one I am going to back out and put some on there. I've got some of this Tap Magic for aluminum. This is either an aluminum alloy or magnesium, I don't know. But it's probably similar characteristics as far as tapping goes, so I think Alumitap or Tap Magic for aluminum is probably a good choice. Yeah, that seems good. I think before I tap that third hole, I'm going to run off to the hardware store and get the metric screws I'm going to need for this, because they're going to be closing soon. And while I'm there, I want to pick up a screw to replace this missing muffler screw. And just so I don't have any surprises, I want to take one of these existing screws out with me. It'd be difficult. Remember, I didn't really want to use these because the heads were damaged, so I wanted to replace them. Alright, that one's coming out. I hope I'm going to be able to get that one out one more time. Whew. Glad this will be the last time I have to use this screw. Now see, the muffler screw is a good old M5.8. I don't know what the hell these are. Well, I got these socket-headed cap screws to hold the muffler on. The original muffler screws are pretty funky. They have a very large head diameter on them. So, this is not ideal. Problem is, I don't have a washer that will fit this screw, but still have an OD small enough to go down this hole. I think it'll be alright though. So I got these 6mm cap screws for the recoil here, but they won't fit through these bushings, so I'm going to have to drill these bushings out. Alright, so the thickest part of the shank here on this 6mm screw is 0.236, and you know, 0.2362 is 6mm, so we want a little bit of clearance there. Next size up is a 0.238, which is a 6.05mm, which is a B size letter drill, which I probably have. Yep, B size drill did the trick. Large enough to let this screw pass all the way through, but still left a little meat on these bushings. I forgot to tap this hole out the 6. I did these two and I didn't do that one. Tell just by looking at it. Alright. Let's try that again. That makes quite the difference. Going pretty easy on these. I don't want to torque them down too much. Don't need that much clamping force to keep this thing on there. If they loosen up on me, I'll put some Loctite on the threads. But for right now, I'm going to leave the Loctite off. Oh, that feels good. That feels real good. I like it. Almost done. Just going to install the air filter and the air filter cover. So I want to adjust the carburetor with the air filter in place. Make sure that the cold weather plug is in the warm weather position, because I really don't need to use this in cold weather. Now, before I found this screw, and I was convinced that it belonged here because it's a perfect fit. So I was like, oh good, I've got the screw for the cover, and then I realized, oh, there's a second hole here. So I was like, oh, well, wait a minute. And then lo and behold, I went and found the cover, which I haven't seen since I took this thing apart way back when, totally forgetting about the fact that the screws are captive. They've got special washers there so they can't fall out, so that you don't, if you're taking this out in the field, you know, out in the grass or whatever to change the air filter, you won't lose the screws, which is pretty smart. Where does this air filter go? Is it going this way? Yes, I believe so. Okay. Got my fuel lines all hooked up, tank back mounted in, backpack, harness assembly. This is basically all put back together, so I'm ready to go back out and see if it restarts, and if it does, adjust the carburetors for one last time and give it a good test run. But it's after dark already, so I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow.
I wanted to show you guys this was a successful repair, and I got to do this quick because it is raining right now and I don't want my camera to get too wet, and this is going to change to snow and give us some snow, not too much. But the day after tomorrow, we get a major nor'easter coming that's going to dump at least 6 inches and possibly as much as 12 to 15. So yeah, basically I waited too long to fix this leaf blower, and by the time I, have time to actually do the leaf blowing in this yard, it'll be all covered in a ton of snow. Cold. It's in the 30s right now. So yesterday it was warm, like in the 50s, and it started a lot easier, and I could take it off choke almost immediately. It's off choke now, idling good. And that, my friends, is a wrap. The one last thing I would do if I had one is if I had a tachometer, which I think I'm going to invest in a small engine tachometer. They're not that expensive. If I had a tachometer, I would reset the idle and the high speed to like dead on where it's supposed to be. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video series. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you like this kind of content, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Take care.